Hey there, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of City Skylines Rochester. In this episode, I'll be covering the western side of downtown, where you can find modern-day and past government functions of the city of Rochester, like City Hall and the Federal Building, as well as some historic landmarks and office buildings. To begin, I'll be focusing heavily on what's known as the Four Corners area of downtown, where State Street meets West Main Street, and I'll be detailing all the construction seen on State Street as well. Later in the video, I'll also be showing off how I built the rest of the western side of downtown in this massive but heavily detailed city expansion. To kick off today's episode, we are working on one of the most famous buildings in all of downtown Rochester, a historic landmark at what's known as the Four Corners Crossroads at Main Street and State Street. This is the Powers Building. First built in 1865, this second Empire-style bank and office building saw many different additions during its first 30 years in Rochester. The owner, Daniel Powers, saw that additional mansard-style roofs be built and ultimately, a 5-story tower be added onto the building. The reason behind the many additions is that Powers refused to concede the title of tallest building to any of the other taller towers being built nearby, such as the Wilder Building across the street. Whenever another building in Rochester became taller than the Powers Building, he would make another addition and raise the roof, so to say, on his building. Many people praise the historic building today for its unique styling and the cohesiveness of the Powers Building despite its many later additions. After completing the Powers Building, I'm now working my way down State Street. I'm starting off here with another historic building. This is the First National Bank of Rochester. Another procedural objects build, I was lucky enough to be able to find something similar to the building I was looking for in this classical revival style, and I just used PO to kind of mold it into the exact shape that I want. You'll notice throughout this episode, I'm using the mod procedural objects to shape and mold a lot of the buildings that I'm using throughout the city. Now this mod helps to gain a lot more control over how the buildings in your cities look, with the ability to shape, size, and recolor almost any asset to your liking. Sometimes I use it just for minor edits like shaping a building into a corner, or scaling something to make it larger or smaller. But you can also completely transform buildings using the more powerful options like the customization tool. This mod of course makes anything converted into PO non-functional, however. So throughout the video, you'll see me place service block assets inside of the PO buildings to make them functional again with the game mechanics. little bit further to the north, I'm starting to work on this construction zone seen on State Street. To create this, I'm using another powerful mod called Intersection Marking Tool, and I might be a little bit late to the party here, but there is a somewhat recent update that now allows you to assign different props and decals to your roads using the mod. I tested out this new feature by adding some props and decals here to create this detailed construction site, and with the tools and intersection marking tool, I adjusted the probability of the props showing up to add a bit of randomness to them, and then I did the same for the rotations. Afterwards, I was able to copy and paste it across the different lines of the road to create this realistic construction zone. This will really come in handy because now instead of placing props manually, I can save this as a template and apply it easily to any other roads that I want. And as a bonus, it doesn't count towards the prop limit. This mural of John Lewis was completed in the fall of 2020. 4 artists completed this 3,000 square foot mural titled I Am Speaking, depicting the late representative giving a speech in 1963. Located just across the street from the Federal Building on State Street, one of my Discord members and Rochester natives actually let me know about this mural here, and I couldn't help but bring it into the game. I'll eventually make a tutorial on how to make murals like this with real-life images, but with the mod procedural objects, you're actually able to bring any image you want into the game with ease. Back over on Broad Street, this building that I'm working on now is actually the old City Hall for the city of Rochester. Now known as Irving Place, this building, which used to house some of the government functions for the city, has now begun renovations to become mixed-use apartments and offices as of 2021. Later in the video, you'll see me create the new City Hall, which has served the city since the location changed in 1970. For this building, I'm using one of Mac Welshman's assets, the Milwaukee Federal Building, and I'm heavily modifying it with PO. It's not perfect, but until I'm able to commission a more accurate version, I think it fits quite nicely into the city. just saw a moment ago, I took one of the most famous Rochester cathedrals and I molded it with procedural objects into another of Rochester's many churches. I plan to be doing this a lot with this city build, as there's not a ton of variety with North American churches on the workshop, so I just have to work with what's available. Now, I'm moving next door to begin working on the Frontier Telephone building of Rochester. Not too much to say about this building in particular. I wanted to originally go with a television station asset from the high-tech building's content pack, but it wasn't close enough to the real building for my liking. I decided instead to resort to PO and these large distribution center assets by Avanya, since they have the large, monotonous gray office building look that I needed. Later, I added some telecommunication towers to the top of the building to complete the look. I talk about the Discord server in most of my recent videos, but if you're new here, I definitely recommend joining and checking out the great community that we have over there. The Discord server now has over 400 members, and it's a great place to share your own City Skylines builds, get feedback and advice, and interact with the City Skylines community, as well as some other content creators and asset creators. I'm very active over on the server, and I enjoy chatting with the community and sharing updates frequently over there. It's also a great way to get involved with the different projects that I'm working on. I'm always in need of some extra help from the Rochester and Pittsburgh locals to make sure the builds that I create are accurate. You can also share feedback and suggestions on the future changes as I begin to revitalize these cities. Check out the invite link in the description below to join today. As I complete more of this area of downtown, one topic I really wanted to cover in this video is minimum parking requirements. As you can see, the west side of downtown Rochester has no shortages of surface parking. There are almost 30 different surface lots here, and that's just counting in between the inner loop and Broad Street. There's much more when you look at the downtown as a whole. Now of course, some of this parking is already planned to be converted into housing, and that's great. But what I want to discuss now is what led to a significant portion of the land use in this part of the city to be dedicated to cars and parking in the first place. How does this happen? Part of the cause is what's known as minimum parking requirements. These restrictive requirements are baked in when zoning new developments, and are put in place to ensure that enough parking is provided based on the square footage of the buildings and their assumed parking demands. The major problem with this kind of one-size-fits-all requirement is that it can result in a lot of otherwise useful and valuable land area to be wasted. As you can see, by looking at either Google Earth or the simulation in-game here, a lot of these lots go underutilized a majority of the time. So what's the alternative? People have to park somewhere, right? Well, maybe somewhere in the middle is a better solution. By removing these restrictive minimum parking requirements, we can build denser and more walkable neighborhoods. Allowing for more businesses to enter the area will not only allow for more vibrant and interesting neighborhoods, but also increase tax revenue for cities. In order to successfully remove parking from our cities, we have to not only create more walkable and bikeable neighborhoods, but also increase access to reliable public transportation to help alleviate some of this parking demand, allowing residents to rely less on cars to get to their destinations. Some cities in Europe have taken an approach of repurposing underutilized parking facilities, and there's no reason why American cities can't begin looking to do the same. Increasing the efficiency of how we zone parking and wasting less valuable land in our cities is one way that we can bring these Rust Belt cities into the future, allowing for more dense neighborhoods to be built, more housing opportunities, as well as more businesses to serve these new residents, leading to more lively and attractive places to live. The final detail build of today's episode, this building that I'm working on now has served as Rochester's City Hall since 1970. I plan on eventually commissioning this building once I can find a creator who's interested in modeling it. For now, I'm just trying my best to create something in PO that doesn't look too out of place. I kept pretty much the whole build in here mostly unedited, so that you can see how I work with buildings like this in PO, reshaping them using the vertices and the customization tool. Wrapping up today's video, I'm placing some of the final details like road patches, potholes, and damage to roughen up these clean roads a little bit. As I mentioned earlier in the video, I'm also making sure to place service blocks in each of the buildings to make sure the city is functional again. As always, stick around for the final cinematics at the end of the video, where I'll also be showing off some of the off-camera work that I completed.